Hi everyone, my name is William Krenzer. I'm a research project manager at Duke University. And today we're going to talk about what is a registered report. So here are some of the learning outcomes that we have set up for this video. We're going to start off by defining a registered report. Then we're going to explain the steps in the process of a registered report. And then we're going to compare registered reports with traditional papers in how these kind of processes work. When we start by defining a registered report, we'll start off by talking about what is a registered report and the key features of it. The first key feature is that a peer review happens in a registered report prior to any data collection or analysis. So you haven't conducted or run or analyzed any of your data or any of your studies yet, and you're getting this peer review prior to that. The second part is that it's a guarantee from the journal that it's going to publish your paper regardless of the results. So it's the journal saying to you that we will side by you and we will publish your paper regardless of what happens in terms of your study. Now with registered reports and traditional papers, they both go through the scientific method as we discussed earlier, with one of the key things that we know for both of them is that you do go through a peer review that happens at the very end of your study. After you've concluded your results and you've written up your paper, you're going to go ahead and submit it for your publication. Now the key feature of registered reports that's different from traditional papers is that you actually go through a peer review process that happens here after you're done with writing up your hypothesis and creating your question, but before you've conducted any of your studies. Now there are key terms that we should talk about when we're talking about registered reports. The first one is going to be stage 1 peer review. That's that peer review that happens prior to any data collection or analysis. So this is the one that you do after you come up with your hypothesis and you've written up your questions and you've done your introduction. You then submit that manuscript to the journal to go ahead and go through that first peer review. Now after you've gone through that first peer review, you're going to work with the reviewers and the editors, and then you're going to make any changes that they request. And after that, assuming you can make it through that process, you're going to get what's known as an in-principle acceptance. And this is the journal saying that they will publish your study regardless of its outcome. Now, after you get this in-principle acceptance, or also known as an IPA, you go ahead and conduct your studies and go ahead and run up the rest of your studies as you normally would, and then you would write up the rest of your paper once you're done with that. And now, after you have a completed manuscript, you'll go ahead and submit that for what's known as the stage 2 peer review. Now, this is the peer review that happens at the very end, ensuring that you followed your plan and you did what you said you were going to do. Now, these are just the key aspects that make a registered report different from a traditional paper, but let's go ahead and talk about some of the things that we can see when we're going through the peer review process for both the traditional manuscript and the registered report process and see how they may be similar or how they may be different. Now, the key point here is that these are actual comments that we've found for both the traditional and the registered report process, and so it'll be interesting to see how they compare to each other. So in the traditional peer review process, when you receive a comment like no significant analysis arise from the study, or the experimental design is a bit funny, or the results of this paper is neither novel nor exciting, or something like how does this theory explain your results, or the sample is small, the measures are uninformative, nothing much one can do about these flaws, or this question is just uninteresting. When you receive these comments in the traditional way, you have to go ahead and figure out how are you going to adjust this. You've already run your studies, you've already written up your paper, and now you got to figure out how am I going to appease the reviewers with these kind of comments? Am I going to make changes? Am I going to change my analyses? Or am I going to go ahead and submit my paper somewhere else? These are things that the researcher has to kind of figure out and think about when they're going through this peer review process through the traditional manuscript. Now, when we go through the peer review process for registered reports for stage 1, when you get a comment like no significant analysis arise, well, that's not actually going to happen in stage 1 because stage 1 happens prior to any data collection. So you're not going to get any comments like that. But if you get a comment similar like the experimental design, instead it might be something like, let's fix this design and fix this design issue in your study so that we can make this design more sound. One of the results of this paper is neither novel or exciting. Again, you're not going to get that in the stage 1 because there are no results when you do your stage 1. Or how does this theory explain your results? Instead, it might be, hey, maybe we should address this missing theory in your introduction. Or the sample's too small, hey, let's adjust this and add more data. Make sure you get more data before you conduct this study. Or you still may get the question or the comment not interesting, and that's just part of doing research. That might just be what happens. Now that's the stage 1. Again, stage 1 happens prior to any data collection. With registered reports, you do have a second stage of peer review that happens after you've collected your data, after you've analyzed everything, and after you've written up your whole paper. So now these kind of comments are going to be more, what can we say that's going to actually make everything fit together better? So you may get something like, well, you may choose to do a post hoc analysis, but is that going to add any value? That could be a comment you get for stage 2. Or your results could be more connected to the literature. Maybe you need to figure out your discussion section just a little bit better and how those kind of results fit with it. Or there are several points and deviations that you didn't explain. You made changes to your study. You need to address those at the stage 2 kind of point of view. Or I don't think those conclusions follow what your data says. You need to adjust this a little bit more. Or lastly, you may get, I did not see much in the discussion on limitations, and so you just need to kind of talk about your methodology and your limitations a little bit better. So in summary, what is a registered report? Well, we know it is a scientific publication that has peer review prior to any data collection or analysis, and you get an in-principle acceptance from the journal saying that they will publish your paper regardless of its outcome. You undergo 2 stages of peer review, a stage 1 peer review, which happens prior to any data collection, and a stage 2 peer review, which happens after the conclusions of your studies, but before the paper is officially published. And lastly, registered reports allow for these kind of critiques of your research to come prior to any data collection, so you can make any changes to any errors that there might be in your design prior to running the studies. And it allows for the paper to be accepted based off of the merit of the question and the design of the study. Now, in our upcoming video, we're going to talk about the potential benefits that you can have by going through a registered report. So please check that video out after this.